Hello, welcome to Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you with Red 10 People Development. Or should that be the Late Late Show? Wrexham, in the space of 99 seconds, went from 12th in the table to 6th place into the promotion picture for the first time this season. On today's podcast, we will look back at the incredible QPR win, ponder whether Wrexham can actually get promoted to the Premier League, and take a look at the final days of the transfer window. Are Wrexham about to smash the Championship transfer record? All that and more on today's show.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
Nath, there's only one place to start. Loftus Road. Wow. One of the away days for the ages. Wrexham leave it late. We were saying just on last week's podcast, we haven't really had a win like that this season, where we snatch it at the end against all odds. You've got a dream, haven't you?
Well, look, the funny thing is we did that whole thing about Wrexham have lost X amount of points, 20 points from winning positions. What we didn't say was they've won about 15 from losing positions or something like that. So there are two sides to that coin. I do want to apologise firstly because quite a lot of people were tweeting us saying, where's the next podcast? When are you going to do a podcast? Hopefully it'll be Monday. It is our regular Thursday slot, so apologies for that. But yeah, still on a massive high. Ollie Rathbone, in the words of Mark Griffiths, have my children. So yeah, very, very good fun, QPR. Dreadful first half, completely sort of scrubbed from history by the time the second half finishes, and Windas's goal amazing. Maybe we'll get a little bit onto Windass and his demeanour. That's quite a debate at the minute. And Ollie Rathbone, what's more there to say about Ollie Rathbone? But into the playoffs, eh? So from 12th to 6th, 1 week away. We still going with that?
Of course we are, mate. Technique as well. Like, what a week it's been for Wrexham as well there. And, you know, these are the games and those gritty wins that we're going to need, like you said, though. And I think what is important to kind of say is, of course, we've got a chance now of getting the playoffs, but still have probably between 7 and 10 other teams, not just the teams that were kind of immediately below us, but some of them who are right on the rise near the bottom of the table as well. I think watch out Norwich City. They look like the team to beat in the Championship right now, and maybe as well as context of why we did lose to them the other week. Not, you know, this sort of freak result. They look the real deal all of a sudden under their new manager as well. But, you know, we were 12th, Nath, in the 92nd minute, and we finished at 6th. And again, that is the important context. I want to be fully embrace the giddiness and excitement and be like, we're 6th, this looks amazing. I want to frame the Championship table as it stands right now. But we could easily have come onto this podcast saying we're 12th. And the kind of mood changes quite a bit. So I just don't want us to kind of get too carried away when, like we said, 1 week will change this. But right now, there'll be, like we said, there's so many teams dreaming of the playoffs. Why not Wrexham? Come on, let's do the Cape Four.
But if you're going to ride the highs, if you're going to accept the lows, you'll ride the highs as well. And I think, look, Phil Parkinson won't be getting too giddy either way. He'll be delighted with the manner of the win, and Rathbone's finish is amazing. Celebration's great, and the fans at the top end there got to, you know, bounce to like mad, basically bounce to the high heavens all the way across London and all the way back home. But I don't think Phil Parkinson would have panicked had we lost the game and we'd have been 12th. And I don't think he's going to get too carried away that we won the game and we're 6th. So big win, important win. We're going to look back on the season at key moments in it. That is definitely one of them. A point of the season where we're entering the final days of the transfer window. Things are moving very quickly on and off the pitch. And it's easy for results to get away from you when in such a tight league. You need to grind out points and grind out wins. And the fact that we didn't just settle for the 2-2. We did keep going and we did keep pushing after Mbengate got sent off. That's a sign of a really good team. That's a sign of a team that believes they can go far, and they weren't content to just get a point on the road at Loftus Road, which I think, it's just a sign of how far we've come.
Again, like we said, I think those first few, I mean, you look back to that QPR defeat at home early in the season, you look at the team that would have played in that one as well, and what has changed. You know, we've spoken in the previous years on the podcast how much a team changes across the course of the season, and we look completely different to that team that lost to QPR earlier in the campaign. But as I've said so many times as well, the reason for that as well, because you've not had that kind of buy-in. But now this squad will be fully, the ones who were signed in the summer will be fully, infused with Phil Parkinson as a manager. They will believe the tactics, they'll believe the project, and they will keep fighting to the end because they hadn't experienced what it was like to win at the racecourse under the lights. They've had that against Coventry, against Sheffield United in the FA Cup. They've now had as well one of these away days and Wrexham put out such a good tweet this week of all those last minute winners added time winners under Phil Parkinson, and so many of them, so many good memories to relive. Crazy how many of them were in that first takeover season. They actually counted for nothing in the end. You look at the Stockport winner, we would go and lose at Wembley after that, the Halifax win, the Dover win. We don't get promoted. But it's just that mentality that has been present in every single season before, but we hadn't quite seen it yet, had we? And maybe that was one of the missing ingredients. But, every team right now will be looking at the table thinking we've got a real shot of getting that last playoff place. I think we're both kind of in agreement that the 5 teams above us, we don't expect to change in terms of the personnel. They'll change order, but not who the 5 teams are. So it kind of feels like there's one space up for grabs.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. It's almost like I told you that, you've repackaged it, purposed it, and taken it for yourself, so that I don't have the point to make. Yes, Rich, well done. It's good, very good hosting skills right there. I would expect the same. I think Middlesbrough. I think Middlesbrough will be a top 2 team. I really do. I think that they'll be in the top 2, and it'll be one of Coventry or Ipswich that are with them. Millwall, very, very solid, and they're about to get Barry Bannon, who obviously caused us all sorts of problems in the game early in the season when Sheffield Wednesday played at the racecourse. So I'm very much hoping that if Bannon is wearing the Millwall shirt in time for Millwall's trip early February, which you'd imagine he will be, that we don't give him acres of space, the freedom of Wrexham like we did the first time round. So I think they'll be there. And that Hull, I think, they've got some of the best firepower of anyone in the league, and they're getting about 100 million players on loan, so they're not going to be short of bodies because they can't pay for players seemingly. So, and then you look at the flip side. I really like Bristol City, but they've just lost Mehmeti to Ipswich. That's a massive blow. Will they be able to keep hold of Zach Viner between now and the end of the transfer window? And we'll get onto transfer specifically later. But yeah, I think the 5 above are kind of set. And look at Birmingham; they're going for it. Wrexham are going to go for it. Derby, if they can get Schmodix in, they're going to go for it. So it's going to be a really, really nervy, but I think very fun and very entertaining run to the finish here, because there are so many permutations of who it could be, and the points that will be required, it could be lower than normal because everyone's taking points off each other, or it could be a lot higher and you're going to have to be almost flawless.
Yeah, so on that, I've done some quick maths here, some research before we came on the podcast, which Nath has kindly alluded to, but not stolen like I stole his point. So Wrexham, at the moment, the only team on 44 points. Millwall ahead of us in 5th are on 49. So there's a 5-point gap there, same games played. Below us, on 43 points, you've got Preston, Watford and Bristol City. Watford have a game in hand. Then behind them, Stoke, Derby, QPR, Birmingham, Leicester, Southampton, but you've got Swansea, Sheffield United, and we're looking down to 18th really. Norwich, we're saying they're kind of the last team who are still within a promotion push, for that last place, just because they look on fire at the moment. And 11 points might seem a lot, but over 17 games, that could potentially be made up. Might be a little too late for them, but they kind of remind me of that Doncaster team in League Two, who second half of the season just flicked a switch, and they were the team to beat out of nowhere. Didn't quite work for them, of course, either. But, Nath, if we look over the last 10 championship seasons, Wrexham on 44 points now. The lowest points tally to get 6th place, so this is the lowest tally any of the teams in 6th had, was 68 points. That was last season, funnily enough. So like you said, might take a lowish points tally this year. The highest points tally a team in 6th has had, the highest is 80 points. The average over the last 10 years, 73.5 points would get you 6th place. So if we round that up to 74 points, that's 30 points away from where Wrexham are now. So on average, 30 points from our final 17 matches would be enough for 6th place, which would be 10 wins from our last 17. It might not pan out like that, but surely that is just the target we've got to hit now. 10 wins out of 17 doesn't seem out of the question.
It does, when you put it like that, it doesn't, does it? And I mean, I'm just trying to process that really. 10, which is not very good for a podcast, but
Another point,
10 wins.
another
Go
point
ahead.
I wanted to make as well is of the 5 teams ahead of us, above us in the table, 4 of them have got to come to the Kairos. We've already beaten Coventry at home this season. We've not played Borough, Ipswich, Hull, or Millwall at home.
Yeah, but then I'm saying, but Middlesbrough were really good away from home. I know we beat Coventry, and that is great, but we did also, lose to West Brom. I know this early in the campaign we lost to QPR again early in the campaign, but we lost to Norwich recently.
This is a
So
good point
we
to make,
are
actually.
beatable at home.
Across the entire season, the top 3 teams away from home, Borough, Hull, Derby, they've taken the most points on the road. The 3 teams with the worst record on the road, Sheffield Wednesday, we should have lost that game. West Brom, we did lose that game. And Portsmouth, we've not played yet. But like you said, while we might get giddy at our record against the teams above us, there's plenty of teams below us who we've struggled against as well.
You'd have to say though, Rich, we're in a very, very good position. And I know it's not that classic case of like, it's far too early yet to get nervous or anything about, are we going to get over the line? It's a long way to go, 17 games. And if we're being real, Watford have that game in hand. So if Watford, win that game in hand, we're out of the playoffs. But we have an excellent opportunity. We've still got to play, like I said, we've got to host a lot of the teams that are in the mix, in the playoff mix. And all I want is to be going into the final 2 or 3 games with a shot at getting the playoffs. And then at that point, we've had a remarkable season, whatever happens. Like if you just get to those, because our running is particularly tough. I think I put out a tweet a little bit ago of every remaining game, and in the running, we've still got to play. I think Middlesbrough and Coventry are our final 2 games.
Yeah, Coventry
we've got
away.
Birmingham in the final. Yeah, we've got Birmingham in the final 5 as well. I think maybe a trip to St Andrews in there. So it's definitely not easy. I mean, no game at this level is, but the running's particularly tough if it's going to come down to the wire.
Of course, yeah. And again, we talk about how quickly the mood can change in the space of a week. I know we've got Sheffield Wednesday this weekend, and we've got a preview of that later in the podcast as well. But then it's Millwall. That's such a tough game. Bristol City, a really tough game. Ipswich at home twice, of course, as well. So one of them's FA Cup, But again, the mood could quickly change, couldn't it? But right now, you would say that if Wrexham do their job, 10 wins probably would be there or thereabouts, wouldn't it? But you just want to be going into May with it all to play for, because it looks right now like Wrexham are going to achieve their best ever finish of all time. 162 years this football club's been going. They will never have finished as high as they probably will do this championship season. So let's enjoy it for whatever it is. But right now, why not dream? Football, this is what I've been doing some Sheffield Wednesday podcasts this week, and I've been kind of defending Wrexham fans, saying we come across as cocky. But the word I would use is we come across as fans with belief. There are so few fandoms who actually have belief and optimism and positivity. And Wrexham fans having optimism gets construed as they're really cocky, arrogant. We're not. We've just done it 3 times in a row. So why on earth can't we finish 6th now? We're 6th in late January. Like, of course we can dream of promotion. If you're not going to dream of promotion, what's the point of being a football fan? So drink it in, carry on looking at that league table and milk it. Just milk it. We don't know how long this is going to last. Make yourselves insufferable, okay? We have earned this. We have had so much pain over the years. Enjoy it. Wrexham are 6th in the championship, Nath. 6th.
The deciding factor, Rich, I think, when you're looking at, getting those 10 wins, we've got loads of brilliant players. And I actually think now there's a real selection headache, a good one, about what combination of Broadhead, O'Brien, Rathbone, Windassy you're playing behind a Kiefer Moore. All of those players believe they should be playing. All of them want to start every game, and 2 of them won't, at least, if not more, if you decide to mix up and do something else. But crucially, it's going to come down to the final few days of the transfer window. It's going to come down to who gets that season-defining player to come through the door in a position, whether it's wing back. I think there's question marks over our wing backs, even the starting ones. I mean, Kabore really struggled, probably his worst game for Wrexham at QPR. Kache, has good moments, but also has bad ones. I mean, a few people disagreed with the take that he wasn't very good against Leicester, but, I think he splits opinion, and I think they'll look at another wing back. But Norwich, we talked about them. They've gone and bolstered and really added to their squad in the transfer market. It's making a difference. Coventry are adding to their squad. It's not quite having the desired effect right now. Middlesbrough have just got Sarmiento out of Brighton, and they've just got Castledine, who was basically the best player in League One. He's come from Chelsea. People are making me. Birmingham have just gone and got a very, very good player out of La Liga, out of Deportivo Alaves, I think it is. And they've just gone and got another striker from Dujardin, who played in the Champions League last season, I think, against Chelsea. So people are making moves. Wrexham clearly want to, but at the minute we're clearing things out. So how do you see it with, the transfer deadline, 7 p.m, Monday the 2nd of February? We haven't yet made a significant move. How are you feeling about it all?
I'm feeling confident because I feel like we are a broken record in the transfer windows, where it always comes down to the last sort of 4 or 5 days, and then out of nowhere, Wrexham just win the window, or they just get these deals done out of nowhere. I still think we'll probably get 2 in. I'm optimistic it might be 3, but 2 seems the best bet. It feels like, and reading and speaking to people, that a striker is still the priority right now, just to get some extra firepower in attack, because as good as we are, and I'm really proud that we've got goals from all across the team this season. It felt at the start of the campaign like it was Kiefer or bust, and I still think tactically it is a lot of the time, but he's facilitating other players to get goals and occupying those centre backs like Ollie Palmer used to do. So I think striker's the priority still for deadline day. All this talk of Sidiki Cherif. I think Adam Armstrong's another name that's been floated about. I think, not quite sure right now, but he's the top scorer in the Championship. So although Southampton are struggling, Wrexham could, potentially end the window with the top goal scorer. In fact, I think he's been overtaken by Vibotnik now at Swansea, but Armstrong is joint sort of second place in the league alongside Whittaker, Clark and McBurney. So you could sign someone really good from lower in the table, Vibotnik as well, and I think he's going to have to get a move at some point if Swansea can't match his ambition. And then at wing back, Richard Sutcliffe put his piece in The Athletic this week and said Wrexham are looking at 1, if not 2 wing backs before deadline day, like you said. And we keep on saying how important the wing backs are. And Kabore and Kache just haven't really pushed on as we expected. They've not started a game since Portsmouth away. Was that in November, maybe? And yeah, you just need availability now until the end of the season, because it still feels like, particularly at wing back and striker, one injury could really sort of derail this promotion push.
Yeah, look, I think there are. Look, if we were to make the giant step into the Premier League, we would need significant change, I think, on the squad. But we're not. We're in the Championship. We don't need significant change in January, but we just need. You need a player that you can just hang your hat on to go and score every single week. And as good as Kiefer is, there is just a level that you can go and get. And clearly, the club believe that Sidiki Cherif is that player. I mean, unless Parky just fancied a trip to go and watch Angers against Paris FC. Sidiki Cherif didn't score on his little jaunt. I'd love putting that through expenses. Maybe Parky's just thinking, I'd quite like a little European jaunt, and so start scouting players. I want to personally scout these players. If you start scouting anyone in like Barbados or Mauritius, it might sort of
it's an
throw
untapped
things.
market.
Yeah, you might go. You know what?
There's got to be a baller in the Seychelles.
Yeah, St. Lucia. That's where I want to be looking for, and for 2 weeks actually. Yeah. Obviously, first class flights.
All inclusive.
Yeah, all inclusive and first class flights. Definitely, and I'll come back with a good report of as he's sipping his pina colada watching the St. Lucian League. But went out to watch Sidiki Cherif. Speaking to people close to Crystal Palace, they are digging their heels in a bit. They don't want to pay as much as Angers, and it's that classic thing of how much are you willing to guarantee? How much are you putting in add-ons? Obviously, people would like the guaranteed money, as it would work in any sport, right? I always chat to some friends in the US, and they talk about guaranteed salary for NFL players and what's kind of conditional. Obviously, everybody wants guaranteed money, so no different with clubs in terms of what they're definitely going to get. Shariki's got 4 goals this season. Not super prolific, so it's an interesting one, right? Because if he arrives in a total package of 90 million, that is the most expensive transfer in the history of the Championship. So you're not playing around there. That can't be a, well, we'll see how he gets on and hope for the best. You're starting every single week possible, mate, and you're going to have to score a bag full of goals.
Yeah, it's just, deal might not happen, but to me, it feels like a lot of pressure and a lot hinges on him this time of the season because he's a project player, someone with enormous potential, Premier League potential, maybe even Champions League potential, long term. But right now, 6 months in the Championship, and if Wrexham don't get promoted, people will be saying, "Well, what a waste of money he's been. It's not worked out, etc., etc." Does his profile actually fit our style of play perfectly? I'd say not. And then he's adapting to a new league at a young level. You potentially got the language barrier. You've got other issues like that of just settling in. There's so much to sort of to comprehend in there. So I think Cherif, he would be a superb sign. Shariki would be a fantastic long-term signing for Wrexham. But if we're signing someone this month to get us into those playoff positions, I'm not sure it would be him personally. I mean, hopefully he signs and I'm wrong and he scores 40 goals in 17 matches or something. But just feels to me like it would be quite a gamble in terms of our short-term vision.
Yeah, so I don't know. Would you, because, well, look, we don't watch Sidiki Cherif week in, week out for Angers. Let's not even pretend that. And anyone who says they do watching, unless you're an Angers fan, I'm skeptical, I would say. But is it the kind of classic case, Rich, of like sort of Little England here, where we know Adam Armstrong, like we know Verbotnik, like we know these players because we've seen them play, so therefore we feel more comfortable. But this player that has Premier League interest is being valued at a higher amount than the likes of Verbotnik. We don't know much about, but is it almost the kind of Little England thing of, oh, we don't really know much about him, so it feels a gamble, when truthfully, we don't have a Scooby-Doo if Cherif is unbelievable or he's rubbish. We don't know.
Yeah, and we've been saying all season we'd love to see us go for sort of less obvious signings and to widen the net, which I absolutely think we should be doing. I think it's just the combination of the transfer fee as well. For a kid that age, I know to him the transfer fee won't matter, but you can already see all the articles being linked with Ryan Reynolds set to break championship record, like I said, 12 million reported up front plus 7 in potential add-ons. I know clubs always want to stick to what they've actually paid, but we work in the media, we know that £19 million price tag will be the one that is weighted against him. I just feel that, obviously the fact Crystal Palace are even remotely interested does say that this is a guy with real pedigree and potential. But we keep talking, and we've said, and we probably should have said this in the first section of the podcast as well, this looks like the best chance Wrexham will have to get out the Championship over the next few seasons, just because the calibre of teams who'll probably be relegated from the Premier League, their financial situations and the parachute payments they will have. And then you factor in that Birmingham, Southampton, Sheffield United, Norwich next season could all be real forces as well. No guarantees, of course, but you'd expect that. So you're looking at someone who you can rely on and have. I think you want a safe bet in January. And Sidiki Cherif, he looks fantastic as a potential, but is he the safest bet this month? So I know it might come across as a Little Englander, skeptical of getting the guy from Ligue 1. I just think there's quite a few question marks over that deal personally.
Before we get into some of the outgoings that we've had, and that's kind of the focus before we get anyone in to kind of clear and reduce the numbers down. I'm not rewriting history here, we were both quite excited about Connor Cody. We've seen him play for years. We were like, this is what we need. Spoke perfectly. And I think you'd have to say, we're saying this, he collected his things from the training ground on, what day of the week? Monday or Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday. Collected his things yesterday from the training ground when we record this, and prepared to head down to Charlton, and it's just working out a wage split, and he'll head there on loan. Only a few months after Wrexham paid $2 million to get him out of Leicester on big wages. That's unequivocally been a disaster of a signing. You have to, on the pitch at least. On the pitch, it's not gone well. So that was a player that we knew really well, we were really excited for. And so I think every player's a gamble.
Yeah.
Recruitment is just the hardest thing you can get right, because Parky's had so many successes. But, he hasn't got every single one right, has he? There have been a few over the years, Billy Waters, Sean Brisley that look good elsewhere, but just for whatever reason in that moment didn't click with Wrexham. So, it's really hard to nail recruitment every time. And the issue you have when you go higher up the league is the money involved becomes, infinitely more. So you're not talking about a kind of a £2 million transfer. You're talking about a £19 million transfer, and if you go up again, it's like, well, there's 35 million you can put on a midfielder that actually you quickly see maybe isn't good enough. So it's kind of like a roulette game now. You want to, you're not blindly spinning it and seeing if it's red or black, but you can do all the prep and all the counting and all the kind of research you want, but ultimately it's impossible to know if there's no home run, I don't think, when it comes to football recruitment.
No, absolutely not. I think, like you said there, the fees just seem higher and higher and astronomical, and we always keep speculating when will football hit that ceiling. It kind of potentially is mellowing out now, but at a level where, like you said, in the Premier League, you spend 30, 40 million pounds just on a average player now, and that's it. And then for premium players, you're going 60, 70 million, and that is just the norm. It's crazy that no club will say they've got a flawless recruitment strategy. I think most clubs would aim for a sort of 70% success rate in the transfer window because that is quite achievable. You accept that there's going to be some mistakes in there. And like you said, Wrexham have had a few. Plenty of them across the course of takeover have been hits you can take. Like Billy Waters made so much sense to get in for the last few months of that National League season because if something had happened to Mullin, we needed someone. And Billy Waters, you feel, would have been able to do a job. That made sense. I know it wasn't the wisest investment. You won't remember him as a good Wrexham signing, but it made sense to do. And Brisley, Ryan Hardy at the start of the window, he looked like a sensible championship-proven striker, and then we moved the goalposts and we aimed higher. He immediately kind of became, I'm not going to say redundant, but he just dropped down the pecking order completely because we upped our ambition for this season. And that is just the gamble you have to take, the risk you have to take. And I have trust in Wrexham that they're not going to just throw that much money at a player they don't believe is a key part of their future, regardless of the league, regardless of the manager, regardless of the formation. But if you're spending that much money, 12 million up front and then potentially 19 million pound, which you'd expect would mean we have to get to the Premier League for that to be activated anyway. You've got to be signing a player who is going to fit in no matter who the manager is at any level and what your formation is. Like he has to work at that sort of cost. So it is just a big fee. But if Wrexham are happy to pay that, it shows the huge trust and quality of him as a player.
Rich, what does because I don't know exactly when we'll record next, maybe Monday night after the deadline is closed and we'll see where we are. But what does it, if Shiriki happens in the next few days, what does a Wrexham team look like after that signing? Because he would have to play for that. Can you play up front with more? That's a change in the shape entirely, or is it just Kiefer then becomes a backup and Sam Smith barely sees the pitch? Sam Smith takes the Ryan Hardy role and Ryan Hardy just, in the stands with the rest of us. Or is it a case of you just bed Shiriki in between now and the end of the season? I'd be amazed if you spend that much money to not sort of have an immediate impact.
Yeah, so this season he's played predominantly as a centre forward and also played a bit on the left wing. Left wing seems a weird one because Nathan Broadhead was the left winger that we signed who doesn't quite fit into this team, but we've made it work in one of those number 10 roles. It's finally sort of clicked for him. He's had to adjust. He's not a wing back. He's one of the number 10s. So Sidiki Cherif, for him to be signed for Wrexham for that kind of money at that age with that profile, you'd say he has to be starting. Is he a wing back? No, not at all. And that is so unfair if you play him there because he's a new kid in a new league. He have to do a lot of defensive work. So he's not a wing back. Is he a number 10? Well, probably. That might be his best position in this Wrexham team. But we've got a lot of number 10s. So what does that mean for them? And then as a striker, that's probably his best actual position. But do you actually envisage Parky dropping Kiefer Moore for him? I just don't see it. So again, it kind of reminds me of Broadhead in the summer where I'm excited by the caliber of player he is and what an incredible talent he looks like. But I'm still just not quite sure where he fits into our style of play.
Right, well, let us know in the comments below which striker you would go for. It doesn't matter whether Parky's been on that all-inclusive holiday to go watch him. Just the striker with a few days to go that you would sign if you had the choice. Money was, I'm not going to say money was no object, because someone's going to probably reply and say like Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. But um, to sort of crystallize my point before we go to a quick break and then come back in about people that are leaving the club, Paris Saint-Germain, desperate to win the Champions League, signed Lionel Messi to play alongside Neymar and Kylian Mbappe, and it didn't work. And that was supposedly the most home run transfer of all time. So nothing is to be taken for granted. And if it is Sidiki Cherif, we'll back him all the way. But I think there's a lot of twists and turns to come yet in the transfer window. Rich, then people leaving the club. I mentioned Connor Cody already, leaving on loan, crying shame how that one has gone. Andy Cannon reunited with, he didn't take the James McLean exit very well, clearly, because he has left for Burton Albion. And Elliot Lee, my understanding that he is, well, Parky said it himself, but my understanding that he was due to head to Reading. Reading reneged on that deal, and it now looks like Lincoln City is a potential landing spot for Elliot Lee. How are you looking at it, the squad building now in terms of the outgoings more so than the incomings?
Just slowly crying, really. We're losing so many favourites again. The only, and I say this with a pinch of salt, the only positive to Andy Cannon leaving on loan was we got that incredible George Evans video at Burton Albion where the media guy is asking him the career paths of Burton teammates. He's given them the former teams they played for, and then George Evans has to say who that player is. So they started out at Chelsea, and he immediately goes in with one of his teammates. He gets asked about Seb Revan's path, and it's like West Brom. Is it like Rotherham to West Brom to
Villa and all that sort of thing? Yeah,
and he goes, Seb Revan, and then he gets asked this one that goes Hull, Stockport, Wrexham, Burton, and George Evans there like, what? No, that isn't a player. And then Andy Cannon just appears from in the corridor and says like, "Hi, mate." And it's just such, whether they knew or not before, it just came across so well. It's such good content. And the Wrexham Old Boys Club at Burton Albion grows ever stronger. You've already got James Jones there as well, Seb Revan, like we said, George Evans. Did they also used to have Bodvarsson and Anthony Ford as well?
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Altin, of course, Fleur Robinson as well. So, there's a lot of Wrexham links to that club. But it's just the ruthlessness that we need. And I think Parky, again, he's been very polite with these players. He's always said, we are considering every option. And he never says categorically that a player doesn't have a future at Wrexham. He always keeps that door open. He's very respectful to that. But there's an elephant in the room. And these players are not top-end championship players. And that is what's so painful, because they are top Wrexham players and they've given us so many memories. And we are so lucky to have seen them play for our club. But ultimately, if we do want to finish sixth in the championship, we just can't rely on them as maybe even as squad players, because you're looking at the impact someone like Ollie Rathbone's making, and the fact that he's not even guaranteed a starting role despite all his recent heroics kind of just shows, well, when is Andy Cannon ever going to get a chance then? No offense to him.
Yeah. No, I love Andy Cannon. Like, he just is, that I would struggle to find anyone who doesn't like Andy Cannon. And if you don't like Andy Cannon, I actually think it says more about you than it does about Andy Cannon.
I think
so I'm really chuffed.
It's probably James McLean's wife. She's probably quite jealous of the relationship they have.
Maybe Erin, but she might sort of see him as like an annoying little. She might see him as like another son that's just like very, very irritating. But maybe Erin is his only hater. But if you don't like Andy Cannon, I've got serious question marks. I'm really chuffed for him. I really hope he has a good impact there. And again, he's really, really close with George Evans. I don't know if anyone saw those Australia vlogs when they were kind of out in the morning, and those two were kind of like idiots abroad. Very, very funny. So I'm really chuffed for him. The Cody one, I think, is a real shame. Elliot Lee obviously played 45 minutes for the academy/reserves game the other day against Bolton, 1-1. Jay Rodriguez with the goal, that rising star Jay Rodriguez, teed up by another promising youngster, Paul Mullin, I think it was. But Elliot Lee played in that, and look, he's got plenty of League One interest as well. Lincoln, they're in firm contention to be promoted to the Championship. We can highly recommend the Lincoln Fan Zone if Elliot Lee has any doubts. Lincoln, very good city as well, Rich. We're big fans of Lincoln. Bradford is another option. I think they quite like Elliot Lee, so we'll see where he ends up. And we mentioned previously about Harry Ashfield going out. I'm starting to get the impression and think now that with Harry Ashfield being an extra body, a spare player that you don't register in U25, I'm starting to think Parky will keep hold of Harry Ashfield now.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think he's let Andy Cannon go. He's letting Connor Cody go. He's going to move Elliot Lee on. And not unfortunately, because if Wrexham get up, Harry Ashfield will just be around it and it's a brilliant experience. But I half wonder now whether a season-long loan next season is maybe the agreement of kind of, I know you want to go out now. I know there's loads of interest. I know Bristol Rovers and others are desperate for you, Fleetwood and others. But what about sticking around, being around it, in case of emergency, break glass in case of emergency. And then I promise you next season, we'll get you out on a season-long loan to League One or somewhere and you'll get loads of games. And that might be the message there. We'll see between now and the end of the season, but I'm starting to think Ashfield might stick around now Cannon has gone. It's always a bit of a shame. I think still the most intriguing one is what happens with Paul Mullin. He's under contract until 2027. I don't think he'll be super motivated to take a payout from that contract. It's a lucrative deal, and I'm sure he's quite happy to maybe go back out on loan. But again, time's running out. League One teams and League Two teams were all in action on Tuesday night. They're all trying to get their squads sorted. So I'm expecting maybe another exit or two before the window, and that should then give us maybe one or two spots for the 25-man squad.
Yeah, I fully agree with you on all of that. I think in terms of Ashfield, Wrexham just have to be selfish and protect their interests, and it makes more sense for them to keep him around because, like you said, he's an extra body, doesn't have to be registered, or we make the squad changes officially at the end of the month either. With Mullin, he's got nothing to prove to Wrexham fans. We already know exactly how good he is. I think for his sake, I just want to see him go out to League One or even League Two and just smash goals in again and just shut up those haters and the people who have doubted him because we all know how good he is. He's got nothing to prove in that sense. But I just want to see him loved and appreciated by another fan base as well, and for them to realise, now this guy is the real deal. It might not have worked out at Wigan, seemed like it could have done really well for him there, but this guy can make it work still. So, yeah, it's just the sort of, it's just the transfer window. You've got to be ruthless, and Wrexham have made those decisions. Again, we always come back to it. What makes Phil Parkinson such a great manager is he makes unpopular calls. He does what is best for Wrexham Football Club. His job is to win matches. It's not to keep people happy. And he will do what is best for the club. Also, Nick, on transfers, very funny. You've seen this email as well. In our jobs as journalists, every day our emails get bombarded, usually with sort of betting affiliated quotes from former players. And they always send in their hot takes on every football club. And you can ask any former pro basically a question about any football club, and they'll give you an answer. And it turns into a news story. This week we got I think we both received this email from Brad Friedel, weren't they? So former
Brad Friedel,
one of the great sort of American modern football players. And can you tell me the two players he tipped Wrexham to sign?
Well, so think of the most unrealistic. You might actually have the exact quote, Rich, but think of the most unrealistic player that Wrexham could sign right now. I don't know, maybe like a Cristiano Ronaldo, a Lionel Messi. I'm thinking, just imagine the most ridiculous name possible, and you still won't come up with what Brad Friedel said.
So
you got the quote?
Yeah, Brad Friedel said, and what I love about this is you have to wait for the payoff on both of them, really. So he says, if Wrexham were promoted, good caveat that, you could see a couple of North American players going there, Canadians and US players. Charlie Trafford, watch this space, because they've got marketed heavily with the owners they have. Can you imagine bringing them someone like Neymar into Wrexham? How cool would that be? If they get to the Premier League, I don't know if they'll do it on a sustainable structure or try to make a splash. Fair enough, I think. Fair enough on the Neymar comment. He says, if they went into the market, they could try to get somebody like Vinicius Jr. That would be a ride. I'm not signing he would sign, but that would be fun to watch. Vinicius Jr. to Wrexham would be fun to watch. It would also probably cripple us financially. And where's he staying? Where's he moving to? Cly?
Yeah, Brad Friedel got paid money. Like somebody actually budgeted for Brad Friedel to say Wrexham signing Real Madrid star Vinicius Jr., who was a leading Ballon d'Or contender a year ago. That would be fun. We're not making enough money, Rich, because we are not making enough money. I appreciate we don't have the careers of Brad Friedel, but we need to start saying more outlandish things on the podcast and just start whacking them on social media. I'll tell you what would be fun if we get Ronaldo and Messi to play in a 4-4-2 under Phil Parkinson and they have a bed sit in, don't know, Penamonydd and they commute in
Are
together.
you telling me that if Wrexham signed Messi, he'd start ahead of Kiefer Moore? Because I just do not see that happening. I just do not see that happening. Anyway, let us know, who is your realistic transfer target for the end of the window? Who is your dream transfer? Maybe ever. If Wrexham did get to the Premier League, who's the one player that you would just love to see in a Wrexham shirt? Because the higher up the leagues we go, the more money we spend, it's starting to feel more and more possible. So, hey, who knows? Maybe we will have Messi in a few years, but let us know on robryanred@gmail.com and in all of the comments below on YouTube as well. Right then, Wrexham with playoff ambitions travel to face Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough this weekend, a club who couldn't be further away from the success and happiness, really, that Wrexham have been sport with over recent years. I caught up with former colleague of mine, George Smith. He now works for the Sheffield Star, covering Sheffield Wednesday. He's a massive Owls fan. He has supported them his whole life. And here's what he had to say ahead of Wrexham's trip to Yorkshire this weekend. Well, George, Wrexham reunited with Wednesday this weekend. That 2-2 draw seems a long time ago in the season. What has been the story then at Wednesday? Obviously, the change in ownership, which a blessing in disguise this inevitable relegation might be. What is the mood like at the club since that change in ownership?
Where to start? It's been a very strange season, as you can imagine, Rich. It's been unlike anything we've ever experienced before. Obviously, Dave Chansiri's time in charge finally came to an end in October. He was left with no choice to ultimately put the club into administration after being threatened with liquidation from HMRC, and his hand was ultimately forced, because I think if that sort of pressure had not arrived, he would have still been clinging on now with the type of character that he was. So we went into administration at the end of October. And obviously at that point, the overriding feeling is one of relief, because it just couldn't carry on the way it was. Players not getting paid, regular staff not getting paid, uncertainty over tax bills, this, that and the other, concerns about the stadium. So the overriding feeling was one of great relief the day it happened. We were all celebrating as though we'd won the World Cup. It just felt like a huge weight had been lifted. And obviously we acknowledged at the time that it didn't mean things were instantly going to get better. We know administration, it's a difficult thing to have to deal with. And here we are now, a few days out from the end of the transfer window, and we are now starting to see the dangers and the full sort of feeling of administration, because we are, as we record this, on the brink of losing Barry Bannon, a club icon of 10.5 years. And it's quite sad that it's ending in this manner. The full story of where he wants to go has not come out. There are varying sort of rumours about it. The one that I understand is that he's not got many assurances about what the future is for the club. So it's a real shame that his 10.5 years is ending like this. And there's others that are in danger of going as well. Svante Ingelsson looking like he could join Portsmouth. Jan Valery, who's been linked with yourselves, actually, he could be another one that goes. Bailey Cadamartri. So we are down to the bare bones as it is. We've only been allowed to bring in 2 or 3 loan signings throughout the season, one of which was Harry Amass, which you'll obviously know all about, being a Manchester United reporter, and we had him until about 3 weeks ago. He was exceptional. And it's just been a demoralising season. 1 win. It's 23 games without a win now in all competitions, and it's just an absolute car crash of a season. But it's what we all expected. Relegation will offer us that opportunity, hopefully, to hit the reset button and start again. But the takeover at the moment is in the works. How long it's going to take, we don't know. The EFL are currently carrying out all of their regulatory checks, and we will just have to wait and see. But the mood at the minute, it's rock bottom. The feeling of apathy is creeping in now, because we are just going into every game expecting to lose. The fans have got no desire to go to games anymore, even though they are still turning up, particularly away from home in their numbers. But there is nothing when you're turning up at games. There's not even an expectation that we're going to win. I mean, we've not scored a goal now since Boxing Day. It's 7 games without scoring. So it's bleak, it's miserable, but overriding, taking it all into account, the overriding feeling is one of relief that Dapon Chansiri is gone, but hopefully It is going to be, sooner rather than later, we're going to have new owners in and we can start afresh.
Watching from afar this season, it's felt like, despite all the turmoil and all the crap that's off the pitch, and there has still been fight in some of those performances, though. It's felt like there's been some really narrow, heartbreaking draws and defeats in there. And, it does feel like the players have still really given it a go, despite everything that's going on.
Yeah, they have. In credit to them for that. And Henrik Pedersen, the manager, Henrik is a guy that tries to see the positives in everything, which I suppose you've got to do in this situation. He knows deep down, obviously, the situation isn't good. You'd be a fool not to realise that. But he has tried to sort of inject the players with confidence, belief that we can do this, that and the other. But you're quite right when you say there has been some performance in there where we've just been within touching distance of getting a positive result. I mean, I went down to Watford in early December and we were leading until about the 96th minute and we were pegged back for a 1-1 draw. There was an instance on Bonfire Night at home to Norwich where we absolutely battered them and drew 1-1. We were quite unfortunate not to win the game at Wrexham all the way back in August, right at the end with Charlie McNeil's chance, right at the death. And there's been other instances. I mean, there's several. I mean, Hull on Boxing Day, to say obviously they're flying high towards the top of the table. Wednesday were the better team on Boxing Day and got pegged back to a 2-2 draw after leading twice. So there has been a lot of instances where we've come away from games and thought, you can't batter the players after that. They've given it absolutely everything. And with it being a skeleton-sized squad, these players are having to play week in, week out. There's very little room for rotation. So you've got to take that into account. You've got to take so much into account. It's very difficult. But to the players' credit, there's been very few games where we've walked away and been genuinely thinking that was terrible. The only instance where I've done it, to be fair, was after the Steel City derby defeat to Sheffield United in November, which obviously was a game we went into. We all expected to lose, but we expected a little bit more fight and effort, and it wasn't there that day for whatever reason. It was strange because it was straight off the back of a 2-week international break, so it wasn't a question of being able to blame fatigue on that one. So that's been the only real time where we've walked away from a game this season and thought, that was bad. Coventry were beaten 5-0 by in October. Obviously, at that point, they were battering everybody, so we accepted that one. So generally speaking, you are right in the sense that performances have been better than results maybe have suggested. And a lot of that is down to Henrik Pedersen because he has motivated these players incredibly well. When you've been relegated since virtually the start of the season, it must be incredibly tough to get your players up for this week in, week out.
I've got to ask as well, though, like, this is maybe not one you can even answer, but it's where is that determination and that even will to win matches? I mean, when we were in the National League, the season we didn't go up, when we lost out to Stockport, we played Dover Dover Athletic at home, and I think they were on -3 points, -4 points, and they hadn't won a game all season, and they nearly beat Wrexham. They went 5-2 up. We managed to win 6-5. But I think I remember in the build-up to that, their manager said, we want to get to points. We want positive points on the board. Do you think that is something, I know in this wild season, that's not an achievement per se, but do you think Pedersen will be saying, look, we need to get some points actually on the board and not finish with minus numbers as one of those sort of short-term targets?
I think that the message he reiterated in the press conference is that, like any manager at any club, he wants to win every game, but he knows deep down and probably accepting it privately to his players that he just knows that isn't going to be possible with the way the squad is and the limited number of resources. So I think a lot of Wednesday fans are of the mindset that it would be an achievement to get into positive figures. We're currently on -7. We were down as far as -12, I think it was. We had 18 points docked in total, but at different points. So it would be an achievement really to actually get into plus figures, because a lot of people sort of look at it and say, yes, you've had a lot of points docked, you've had a lot of turmoil, but the bigger overriding factor in all of this as well is the injury crisis has just been unprecedented. We've currently got 13 players out injured, many of whom would walk into the first team squad. And for example, you'll know this guy well from your time covering Manchester United, in Charlie McNeil. He had to play at right wing back at Bristol City last weekend due to the crisis. Sean Fusaya, who's been our first choice right wing back this season, 20-year-old academy graduate, couldn't even get a game in League Two for Carlisle last season, and he's had to be our first choice right wing back this season. Jan Valery came back from AFCON. He's currently sidelined with an injury. Sean Fusia's out with a hamstring injury, so we had no choice. Our left wing back, our only left wing back option now is Reece Johnson, with Harry Amas going back to Manchester United, then moving to Norwich. Yissa Allo's now gone to Chelsea. He was another option at 17. So we have been having to bleed all the kids into the team. And now that we are losing Barry Bannon, our talisman, our leader, it's going to leave another gaping hole. So it's really difficult. And to give you an indication of just how youthful we've had to go in games, the FA Cup game of Brentford early this month, the oldest player on the team was 27-year-old Svante Ingelsson. He was the only starter over the age of 22. So we have had to play the kids. Our first choice goalkeeper, our only senior goalkeeper, he's out injured for a second time. We've had to draft in an emergency keeper on loan because we don't have another senior keeper on the books. So everything that could have possibly gone wrong has gone wrong. So if we were to get into positive figures, all things considered, it would be quite an achievement, to be fair.
I was going to ask you then who are the standout players, but it sounds like anyone who's fit is a standout player at the moment for Wednesday then. And you mentioned there that a few of them could leave as well before deadline day. I mean, what do you expect to happen in this final week of the window then from Wednesday perspective? Do you expect there to be still kind of mass exits and a couple unknown quantities on loan?
Well, Henrik Pedersen revealed last Tuesday night after the Birmingham game that he'd had a meeting with the administrators earlier in the day and they'd confirmed to him that sales were required. Obviously, he didn't go into details about the exact figure that is required to be raised, with obviously the club still in administration, no owners in situ, so we do need the money, obviously, just to keep the lights on. So Barry Bannon, when this podcast comes out, he may have already finalised that exit to Millwall. He may have already gone. That looks increasingly likely to happen. Bailey Cadamartri is another one that's had a lot of interest throughout this month from a lot of clubs in the Championship and up in Scotland. Jan Valery, linked with Wrexham, Rangers, Millwall have been interested in him as well. Svante Ingelsson, it looks as though he'll be going to Portsmouth for £500,000. So, and Ingleson's been one of our best players this season alongside Barry Bannon. They've just been two of the regular starters week in, week out. So, if you were to ask me who the standout player is for the weekend, I genuinely couldn't name one, because there isn't anybody without Barry Bannon. It's just been an absolute nightmare, Rich. And to put it bluntly, and I speak for all Wednesday fans when I say this, we cannot wait for the season to end because it's been that much of a disaster.
Yeah, it puts into perspective, doesn't it, a lot of the other moans and gripes other football fans have. And again, as Wrexham fans, we know from legacy that just to have a football club is all that actually matters. Promotions and stuff are bonuses and having that hope and optimism, but just for there to be light at the end of the tunnel for Wednesday is all that matters at this moment in time. We always ask for score predictions and stuff like that. I don't even want to. I know, but like I said, you've been spirited this season, and what would you expect from Wednesday at the weekend? Because again, like you said, I know there's not been wins for 23 games. You said not been a goal since Boxing Day, but there is still fight in that fan base. Do you think there is any chance of an upset at all this weekend, or do you think this is the longest of long shots?
I think it's very unlikely, to be honest, Rich. I mean, yourselves have been brilliant away from home recently. The dramatic win yet at QPR on Saturday, a third successive away win in the league. And we've not won a home game for nearly 12 calendar months now. We've not won a single home game this season rather. We last won on Easter Monday at home. We've only won 2 home games since the beginning of 2025. So our home record is absolutely abysmal. So most teams now are coming to Hillsborough expecting to win. And I think as the season progresses and the longer this run goes on, every team that turns up will be wary about being that team that is potentially beaten. So that is going to play on the minds of every team. And against Portsmouth in our last Birmingham last week, Wednesday for 75, 80 minutes were really competitive. But because the squad is that thin and there's tired bodies out there, tired minds, not a lot of options on the bench to change things, that's when Wednesday drop off. So to be fair to Wednesday, they are competitive for sort of the first hour and then they begin to sort of regress. And if you get the first goal, the job's done. So I can't see anything other than a Wrexham win. And I'm going to go for a handsome 2 or 3-0. I just think you'll be far too strong for us with the quality of the players that you've got, the form that you're in. And ultimately, we don't know what our matchday squad could look like on Saturday. We don't know at the moment. It's still a case of discussions with the EFL about could we bring in a loan signing or a free agent. It's just so many unanswered questions at the moment. So put it this way, if Wrexham don't win, something's gone badly wrong.
Well, that's the team talk, yeah. And you mentioned that as well. It's worth noting, isn't it? The transfer embargoes mean you can't pay any money for anyone anyway. No loan fees can even be offered to clubs either. So it really is the most difficult situation. I was going to ask you as well, finally, George, to move you slightly away from Wednesday. People listening won't know you. You do a championship podcast as well with Elliot Jackson against someone else we both know. And Champ Chat, is it called? 24?
It is Champ. Yep, that's correct.
I just want to know, from your perspective then, and you don't have to give us a Wrexham-friendly, media-trained answer here. What have you made of the Championship season so far? And well, let's look higher up the table. Who are you backing for automatics right now, and who do you think the playoff teams are going to be? Am I allowed to put you on those predictions?
You can if you wish to. You can, I'll let you. Well, myself and Elliot, we made our mid-season predictions after the FA Cup third round weekend when we didn't have any Championship action to review, and I tipped Ipswich for the title. But obviously they had a little bit of a wobble at the weekend, losing at Sheffield United, which Coventry had a chance to capitalise on last night and didn't take it. So 8 points separating themselves, Middlesbrough and Ipswich at the moment, and Hull, of course. So I've got Ipswich to win the league with Coventry to come second. But with the way Coventry are wobbling a little bit and the way Middlesbrough are looking quite good at the moment, you're inclined to maybe think that Middlesbrough might be the ones that sneak in there. So that's where I am with the top two. In terms of the playoffs, I've got Middlesbrough in third, Coventry fourth, Millwall in fourth. I'd gone for Preston in fifth, which is now aging quite badly. I must admit they've had a real drop off since the new year with those defeats at the Middlesbrough and then Hull last week.
Hull, didn't they? Yeah.
Yes, and 1-0 to Derby last Saturday as well. Then I went for an outside bet in sixth, and I went for Sheffield United to sneak in there. So I apologise, Wrexham fans, but since making them predictions, you have come on quite strongly again with some more good results. And ultimately, I honestly believe this, and I'm not just saying it. I think when making predictions with how the table is so tightly condensed at the moment, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer because it could be anybody. And I was probably a little bit disrespectful towards Hull. Now that they're level on points with Ipswich, you've probably got to give them a little bit more credit. But I think realistically, Rich, it could be anybody's. I really do. I think it could be anybody this year that gets into those 4 playoff spots. So we will just have to wait and see. But if Wrexham were to do it, and I know a lot of people sort of outside of Wrexham talk about the money that you've spent, but it's like I always say, if you've got it, why not spend it? Ultimately, if your club was doing it, you'd have no complaints. I mean, we can't even spend £5 on players at the minute, so we'd take anything. So yeah, I think Wrexham will have a chance. You're looking good at the minute. That the morale you're going to generate from that win at QPR, really impressive. So let's just see. It could be anybody's this year, but I wouldn't be against you getting in there. I think it's possible. And what I've said throughout all the season on my podcast is I'm just pleased that Phil Parkinson has been given a proper chance, because I think it's really refreshing to see a club come from the depths that you have all the way through the leagues and still with the same manager, where a lot of clubs would have gone for a big Hollywood name, no pun intended, and they've stuck with Phil Parkinson. And I think that's really refreshing to see. He deserved a chance, and I'm pleased to see it's paying off.
George, your audition for Rob Ryan Red has gone through the roof. If your agent is not next week, I'm not sure if we can give the transfer fee to Sheffield Wednesday instead, but I think you have the listeners will love you. So thank you very much, George. All the best for the rest of the season as well. I do say good luck this weekend. I don't forget. I think deep down, I'm not even sure I begrudge you if you won. Like, fair play to Wednesday and stuff. So all the best for whatever the future holds.
Lovely. Thanks a lot, Rich.
Well, Nath, as we all know, it's just a very sorry state for the football club. They're just hoping that the season ends. As he said, they're not scored a goal since Boxing Day, not won a match at home since Easter Monday last year. Probably should have beaten Wrexham away at the racecourse earlier in the season. It's one of those tricky games to an extent because everything says Wrexham should win this weekend. And, as I've said to him, Dover Athletic maybe prove to us that it's not always as straightforward as it should be.
Absolutely the case. But, 2-time player of the month, Harry Amas, leaves. He's on loan. They've lost him. The club legend, Barry Bannon, he's gone. He's in the process of leaving right now. Won't be involved on Saturday. But it's an early kickoff in a game where Wrexham are monumental favourites. So what could possibly go wrong in that? You know what I mean? We've seen that script before. Do I think Wrexham will win? Yes, because Sheffield Wednesday are terrible at home. They've been slightly more competitive away, but they've not been very good at home. And the wheel is turning now. Like you mentioned 10 wins there. Momentum is in our sails. We've had a few up and downs. We went on a bit of a run, then we have a bad result. We go on a bit of a run, have a bad result. not going to be too much room for error now. I know we said 10 out of 17, and if we lost 7 games, there'd probably be an absolute meltdown. But this is where we start to separate now the kind of the wheat from the chaff, I think. And this is a game Wrexham should win, and I think they will win.
Like George said there as well, like, until the hour mark, Wednesday are quite competitive, but they're relying on so many kids now and players who just shouldn't really be playing at championship level that, Wrexham just need to do this. And if we want to be a playoff team, we've got to be able to just grind out these routine wins. And we saw it on New Year's Day against Blackburn, didn't we? I think it'll be a similar game to that where we don't blow them away 5 or 6-0, although, without Bannon there anymore and some of the injuries they've got, they might start losing games a bit more heavily. But I think it should just be a routine sort of 2-0, 3-0 win for Wrexham.
Rich, it reminds me a bit of when we were bottom of the Football League and Flinney was turning to people like Wayne Phillips and just putting kids in to say, without the season, there was just no relegation, weren't going to go down. So it was a case of like, okay, just put some kids in, see how they get on, see if it's sink or swim. And, that was maybe a little bit more by choice than maybe Sheffield Wednesday because they just don't have players. But I can guarantee that as jading as an experience as it is for everyone at Wednesday right now, many of these players will be better for it. Like Piers Charles, a young goalkeeper, really good player, and he'll go on to have a really good career. There are others, Charlie McNeil, I didn't think much of as an academy player, and I think he's growing into the shirt. Bailey Cadamarteri, like other players who are improving even in the face of such adversity. So in the long run, whether it's with Wednesday or someone else, I think some of these players will really, really benefit from, I don't know, exposure therapy. Is that what they say? I mean, not that they're terrified of championship football per se, but I mean, it sort of makes my point, I guess.
Kind of makes your point, yeah. Let us know as well what you think this weekend. Like we said, you couldn't really get two clubs who are more contrasted right now in terms of ownership, could you, than Wrexham and Sheffield Wednesday. So, as I said to George there, if we were to lose this weekend, I actually don't know if I could be that annoyed. I'd be so kind of happy for Wednesday in a really weird, perverse way. I'd be furious, but like we said, Nath, there's another 10 games for us to win to get the playoffs. And then we're going to beat whoever finishes third in the playoff semi-finals. Kiefer Moore will redeem himself at Wembley. So we're getting promoted anyway. If we've got to give them a lift, we can do it along the way. But yeah, let us know what you think ahead of our trip to Hillsborough this weekend. Finally, Nathan, an email?
Yes, an email, and then you've got a bit of exciting news about a trip that, well, Phil Parkinson will take, Steve Parkin, and all of us, and hopefully we'll take as well. But there's an email from Mark James to robryanray@gmail.com. Thank you, Mark. He said, comment regarding the rescheduled Bristol City match to February 17th, which is midweek. Obviously, it was going to be on Sky Sports on the 13th of February, but that's when we play Ipswich in the FA Cup. So Mark put, hi Nathan and Rich, really enjoying your pod this year, like really, really. Thank you. I didn't believe until it was the really, really, but thank you for that. But as an Australian who is new to football and inhaling all news Wrexham since the 2020-21 season, I look forward to Informed Podcast to make sense where I don't make sense. So with that in mind, I'm looking at the rescheduled date of the Bristol City away match on February 17th. This doesn't make sense to me. If we're playing Ipswich in the FA Cup on February 13th and then playing them in the Championship the following week, does it not stand to reason that focusing on Ipswich for 2 weeks would have been better for the team, players and coaches than having a midweek interruption and having to pivot attention to Bristol City? For a football noob, would you have time to outline the rescheduled date? Was it something that Wrexham would have planned for? Was it an EFL decision that had to be abided by? And what do you think of it? It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think, is the Bristol City distraction a good thing if you lose to Ipswich in the FA Cup? Even if you win, is it just, keeps you sharp? You've got to focus on another opponent. You can't get a little bit lax. Secondly, there are only so many dates available that both teams have to agree to. So it's not just a case of Bristol City said, we want to play on the 17th, and Wrexham said, we don't want to do that. Okay. You have to come to an agreement. I think you're only allowed to say no a couple of times. You can't just keep saying no forever and the game never gets played. But we are approaching a point in the season where, also, look at it this way. If Wrexham kick the can and say, right, we'll do it in April. We'll do it in April when actually it's then win or bust. Yeah. Like right now, you've still got a lot of the season to go. Yes, it's a Tuesday night down to Bristol City. And yes, you might think it complicates things, playing ahead of that big game against Ipswich. But further down the line doesn't always mean a good. Kicking the can down the road isn't always for the best, because by that point, you might be out of form. You might have players injured right now. We've got a very healthy team. And we're coming up to a point where you might be able to add to that in the transfer window. And things actually look quite rosy now. You probably want to play a lot more games now. I think Rich mentioned recently we haven't got loads of midweek games coming up between now and the end of the season. We just don't.
Is it about
Those
3
Tuesday
maybe?
night games.
Poland, Portsmouth as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, not many though, right? But I don't know. I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I think there's merit, Rich, in when you're healthy and when you're playing well generally, lock it in and kicking the can down the road when you might be unhealthy and you might be out of form, and Bristol City might be in amazing for it. Sometimes it's better the devil you know and just keeping it close by.
Yeah, I agree. I think one factor I'd say on this is, like you said, you don't want it to get to April where it could be 6th versus 7th and it could be this massive Sky Sports extravaganza, a straight shootout for the playoffs, something like that. You just do not want that. Also, a lot of managers just want games done. They want points on the board. They want to know what they're working with. If you've always got this game in hand looming over you, similar to what we said with Watford, and again, this kind of happened in the National League season a lot and felt like a lot over the last 2 promotion seasons, really. You were always just waiting for the other team and you always presumed they'd win and pick up 3 points. Lots of managers would rather just have points on the board rather than a game in hand, because I think a faux pas of football fans is to always presume that a game in hand means 3 points. It never necessarily works like that. And the other factor I'd say is, if we were ever going to have to play a Tuesday night match, you'd want it to be after a Friday night game, because it gives you an extra, what's the quick maths on this? You're probably getting, an extra 16 hours preparation or rest beforehand. So it's a sizable sort of difference, that. So given we're playing the Friday night before, I think it's a real benefit to play Bristol City on the Tuesday that week than it would be if we were playing Saturday, personally. So
And also in between 2 home games, right? So it's not like you're having any other travel. But speaking of travel, Rich, now you were giddy for this. You might not be giddy for transfer window or for QPR last minute Rathbone stealing Mark Griffiths' children, but you were very, very giddy before we came on because Wrexham are about to embark on a European tour. Please tell us more.
Yeah, Wrexham have confirmed their first pre-season friendly. They will play against Wisla Krakow on the 11th of July in Poland. This is very exciting for me because it's an accessible pre-season game for lots of UK and European-based Wrexham fans. I know it's been great for us to go to Australia, go to Vancouver, go to the US in recent years, but for a lot of sort of European Wrexham fans, it's a real opportunity as well to go abroad, to see somewhere new if you've not been there already. Krakow, very cheap and accessible for transport from the UK as well, and just an opportunity for us to go watch Wrexham, effectively the closest thing to a European away day we might get for a while. So very giddy about this. I've been to Krakow before, loved it, fantastic place to go to, really hospitable, very nice. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Went there during like a shock heat wave in October where it was meant to be sort of 4 or 5 degrees. So I was expecting nice sort of chilly winter vibes, and it ended up being 28 degrees and I was roasting hot all week, but it was fantastic. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And Nathan, kind of follows on as well from something you reported earlier as well, that there might be fellow European fixtures for Wrexham this summer.
Yeah, I think. I don't think I know the fact that the World Cup is coming up. It's not a conspiracy theory, man. The World Cup is on the horizon. It's not a breaking news. The World Cup is a thing that is happening in the summer, and as such, it's complicating plans for pre-season. Now, obviously, Wrexham don't know yet if they're going to be in the playoffs or they're up automatic or not involved at all. So it's difficult to plan things out. So it's been a lot of talks, and I wrote that there were talks going on about potentially playing Manchester United in Finland in sort of the 3rd week of July. So it'd be maybe 10 days after that game in Poland. And Peter Moore, who's been on the podcast before, very influential, 2 clubs that mean a lot to him. So he's been a kind of a deal broker or a broker of this deal, I would say, for this one with the Wisla Krakow. But yes, I think keep your eye on a couple of European games, and then I don't know. Are they gonna do any sort of jaunt to the US post World Cup? Try and ride that wave. Particularly when Wales get there and win the whole thing. Do they decide then that once Wales have lifted the World Cup down in DC or New York, wherever the final is. Not that I joke. It's interesting though because Europe is an untapped market. I think we thought maybe was Asia, was Japan, was China, was that kind of an option? Singapore, place like that, but. Locked in Poland, we know that one that is in there. I think the Finland one will happen as well, but waiting for confirmation on that one. And yeah, bit of an adventure. But I don't know. I mean, not sure how kind of our podcast funds will stretch. I'm not going to give you the Phil Parkinson package of business class flights and all inclusive, but we'll see, mate. We'll sort it out for us.
Yeah, as cheap as possible, I think, might be the mantra for us this summer. But it won't be in the transfer window. Wrexham about to smash the record, apparently. We will wait and see. Like Nave said, we'll be back hopefully Monday or Tuesday to digest what has happened in the transfer window, look back at what happens against Wednesday this weekend as well. Thank you, as always, to Red 10 People Development for their continued support of the podcast, and to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, the stings that you hear in the show. But most of all, thank you to you for tuning in wherever you are in the world. Sorry that this one was slightly delayed. We might have been hungover on Sunday, but hey, we're not going to give that secret away. Keep your messages coming in. Rob Ryan Red on all the socials. Take care, and we will see you again next time.
Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Bay.